Indiana annihilates, absolutely destroys the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were up by 40-plus points, including 41 at halftime in this game. And they obviously win the game 129-109. Wasn't that close. Donovan Mitchell hurt. Major storyline. Hope everybody had a good Mother's Day and a great weekend. Hello, Michelle Smallman, Chris Canty, Evan Cohen. How are we doing today?
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell is hurt is a story, but the big story is that the Pacers smoked the Cleveland Cavaliers yesterday, and the Donovan Mitchell injury didn't have an impact on the complexion of that game. Like that was a lopsided game. It was, like you said, a 41-point lead at halftime for Indiana. There was no chance that the Cavs had of being able to win that game. And when they had everybody back in the lineup, it didn't make a material difference in terms of what we saw out on the court. I thought Indiana did a great job of being able to figure out the 3-2 zone that the Cavs threw on them in Game 3, had success with defensively. They shot them out of that zone. Indiana, 50% from the field, 42% from three. It ain't over, Smalls, but it's over.
What do you say? The fat lady's, she hasn't sung, but she's warming up?
Oh, yeah, she's warming up right now.
For sure. She's doing the vocal exercises. And that 41-point lead into the half tied the largest halftime lead in NBA postseason history. It was unbelievable. And what a response from Indiana after the game on Friday. And I love that their mentality is still that they haven't proven anything yet, that they are playing the role of the underdog and still saying that everyone has doubted them and they haven't done anything yet. I think that's beneficial for them as they move forward, having a commanding 3-1 series lead like this.
Everyone has doubted them. We didn't talk about that. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. We didn't say like, oh, yeah, this is their series. Yeah. This is their year. We talk about the Celtics. We talk about the Cavs. You know, maybe a tiny bit the Bucks before the playoffs just because of Giannis. Obviously, the Knicks, who have been very good despite the game this weekend. Nobody's bringing up the Pacers before the playoffs. And they're the ones that are going to end up in the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe the NBA Finals. They're awesome. They're faster than everybody. Their pace is amazing. The chemistry between these guys is awesome. I mean, Halliburton did not play like a superstar yesterday, but Halliburton is clearly the leader of this team. This whole overrated thing from The Athletic was the greatest thing that could have happened to the Indiana Pacers. They have depth. And it's funny because the Cavs' superpower in many ways, outside of Donovan Mitchell, is the double big lineup, right? That Mobley and Allen are bigger and stronger theoretically than everyone else. Did you notice what happened last night? Siakam at 21. Turner at 21. 20. Obi Toppin at 20. So they had 61 points between their three bigs.
17 for the other ones. 17 for the Cavs.
What's the point of the double big lineup if they don't play double bigs? I mean, no, serious. Like when you have a guy like DeAndre Hunter, who we'll get to, who's very smart, and he totally outsmarted Benedict Mathurin, who thought he was going to outsmart him. Virginia guy, so you should feel good about that, obviously. But I think that when you have those two guys together and you're not feasting, as Nuno, a Knicks fan, has pointed out, our producer all along, this Cavs team in many ways was built up to make sure you beat the Knicks and be tougher than the Knicks after they were really out tough by the Knicks years ago. What's the point? What's the point of the double bigs? I understand you won 64 games in the regular season, but this team's going to go down potentially in 5 or 6 games here. They're not even going to get to a Game 7, I don't think, in the second round. And I like the Cavs. I've been saying all year they're the most likable team, but they're falling apart.
Yeah, they're falling apart, but we can't understate the impact of the guys' injuries and being in and out of the lineup and how that disrupts the rhythm, the flow that the Cavs have been able to operate with on the offensive side of the court. Like I think that's a big thing, and we know that when you're not right offensively, it does affect what you see on the defensive side. So I think that's the issue that Cleveland has been facing, right? When you have Darius Garland, when you have DeAndre Hunter, when you have Evan Mobley out of the lineup, when you have Donovan Mitchell dealing with something, you're not able to function like you have been throughout the entirety of the regular season and early on in the postseason, right? This is a good Cleveland Cavaliers team that's well coached under Kenny Atkinson, Coach of the Year. But they're a good team, a really good team. But even when you have that kind of talent, if you don't have the guys that you depend on in the lineup every single night, it's going to change who you are. And it's the perfect confluence of events because now you have an Indiana Pacers team that has been firing on all cylinders. I just saw this stat this morning, couldn't believe it. The Indiana Pacers, since January 1st, 41-6. Ooh. So they are humming. They are playing outstanding basketball and have been for months. So when you start taking a couple of key cogs out of your lineup, when guys aren't playing the minutes that you expect them to, other guys are being thrust into different roles that they're not accustomed to, it's going to adversely affect you. And that's exactly what we're seeing from the Cavs. So I don't think that this series is an indictment on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not going to sit here and call them pretenders or anything like that, because I recognize that they're dealing with substantive issues around injuries. And when you have those guys out of the lineups, it's going to impact you. And we're seeing that when they're up against an opponent like the Indiana Pacers, who can run anybody out of the gym with how well they play offensively and how much they've been clicking.
Yeah, they have been clicking. They had 7 players finish in double figures. They had an incredible distribution of production. But maybe those breaks that they've had over the past couple seasons, as Nuno always points out, has any team, has any franchise gotten more positive breaks in the postseason than the Indiana Pacers? Maybe that's why we dismiss them a little bit. We think about years prior, we look at the Cavs and we say, okay, this isn't an indictment on them because they're dealing with injuries. And now all of a sudden with Donovan Mitchell, you certainly have a big question looming. But maybe that's why we've been a little bit dismissive of Indiana when we shouldn't have been.
Nuno?
Well, Canty, I get it, injuries, right? But like that game, they missed all 3 of those guys. They had a 20-point lead. They were up 7 with 48 seconds to go, and they lost that game. Like at that point, injuries are out of the, out the window there. Like, yes, it could impact everything else, but you were up 20 points. You were up 7 with 48 seconds to go, and you lost that game. Or, like you didn't get an offensive rebound with 11 seconds left, defensive rebound with 11 seconds left. So there was, it's hard to say you can use injuries as an excuse when you were in that position to win the game, and tie the series at 1 on your home court.
I hear that, Nuno. I will also acknowledge that Donovan Mitchell did everything in that game. He scored 48 points, and one is left to wonder whether or not he had enough gas in the tank to be able to close the show. And we've seen in the postseason that you need your stars to be able to step up and make those plays. See what SGA did yesterday against the Denver Nuggets. Like, you need your stars to be able to close out those types of moments. And with Donovan Mitchell, so much of the load being on him because you had DeAndre Hunter out, because you had Evan Mobley out, because you had Darius Garland out, you're just left to wonder, well, maybe if he didn't have to do so much in the first 3 quarters, he would have had enough to be able to control the way that game 2 ended. So I hear your point, Nuno. I'm not dismissing it. I will say, though, when you have that type of interruption with your rotation, it is going to impact you, and that's why I think this Pacers series has been so one-sided for the Cavs.
So now the Cavs have another issue. Right now, if you're going to say...
Quite literally.
Yeah.
A Cav.
Right. So now, if you're a Cavs fan, like our very own Rob Lorenzo, our social and digital guy, you could be upset you're down 3-1, obviously. The question now becomes whether or not you're going to get Donovan Mitchell in the next game because of injury. Here's what Kenny Atkinson, Cavs head coach, had to say post-game.
What can you tell us about Donovan?
Left ankle injury. He'll get a MRI tomorrow.
So obviously there's just not much more you can say as far as availability.
I mean, no idea. Obviously he couldn't go in the second half. So see what the MRI says.
Okay, so if you're watching on ESPN2 right now, Javante is showing the video of Donovan Mitchell. For those obviously listening on our many radio stations across the country, thank you, ESPN app and Sirius XM 80. He was literally, Donovan Mitchell was trying to get shots up at halftime, and when he planted his left leg, he couldn't do anything with it. It was almost as if it just kind of his body gave out the moment he just started planting. He said, he being Kenny Atkinson, ankle. Brian Windhorst, ESPN NBA insider, Hoop Collective podcast on SportsCenter last night, said not so fast with that ankle.
Donovan Mitchell has been dealing in this series with a calf injury. It was not serious enough to be on the injury report, but he was definitely dealing with it and admitted he was going through something. So when you see that video of him appearing to pull something, I mean, he didn't even get airborne, but the Cavs say left ankle. We'll go with left ankle. They'll know more about the MRI, but Donovan, had a calf injury last year in the playoffs, actually in the second round. Was sort of coming from heavy usage rate when the team was dealing with some injuries at that time. He ended up missing a couple of games in the Celtics series when the Cavs were eliminated. Now, really, this is all about what his availability is.
So, guys, we've been saying this now for the better part of the last week or two, that we could focus on Garland, Mobley, and Hunter, but Mitchell was the one that was actually banged up with the calf, even though he was playing through it and even though he was awesome. I mean, I don't know if he can play in the next game because the calf, as we learned with Kevin Durant years ago, very much leads to the Achilles.
Yeah, but why would you play him? Like I would shut Donovan Mitchell down for the rest of the playoffs.
Wow.
Which ain't gonna be that long.
Wow.
It ain't gonna be that long.
Don't risk it.
This is over. I mean, listen, the Pacers are up 3-1. Teams that go up 3-1 in a best-of-7 series are 280-13.
Ooh, okay.
So Indiana has a 95% chance at advancing and getting to the conference finals.
But Cleveland is not afraid of being down 3-1, at least historically. I know different team, LeBron, but still, maybe
Sure.
that organization is like, she may be singing up or warming up, but the fat lady has not sung yet.
Sure, and that's fair, Smalls, but you're talking about your best player dealing with a significant injury. You got a better chance at something bad happening to Donovan Mitchell in the way of injuries with him pushing it, as opposed to your team being able to come back from being down 3-1 in this series and getting to the conference finals. It's just playing the odds. I think that this is an instance where you have to protect the player from himself and you have to protect what's in the best interest of the franchise long term. The window is just opening up for Cleveland. I mean, you got a lot of young 20-somethings on that team. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, these guys are young. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to interrupt the incremental improvement that you've been making by throwing in a potential catastrophic Donovan Mitchell injury that would derail what you could be next season and potentially the year after that? If something happens, God forbid, to Donovan Mitchell because you push him in what would be, a small chance to try to get back into this series, then all of a sudden you're talking about the window to compete for a championship with this core of players effectively being shot. I just don't think it makes any sense. Mm-hmm. I think that there are too many good things going on for this franchise, for this organization, to risk putting Donovan Mitchell out there and something terrible happening.
And you're thinking about the future, which is where mine should go. But I'm sure for that organization, after such a dominant season, that it's hard to punt on that, especially for a player like Donovan Mitchell, who is a dog and wants to be out there.
Yeah, they're going to have to protect him from himself. There's no way he's going to voluntarily do what Cece just said. But the Cavs organization has to think about the long term. And Donovan Mitchell is their short term and their long term. Right. Don't ruin it twice, right? You're going to ruin the series is basically over. Pacers are awesome. And you don't want Donovan to be out for a while now. There's more to do with this series. There's a whole incident with Benedict Mathurin and DeAndre Hunter. In one guy trying to outsmart the other guy, and the guy who was not trying to do it outsmarted the other guy. I was intentionally confusing there. The Virginia guy outsmarted the other guy. You happy about that?
We'll get into it.
You disagree with that?
We'll get into it.
Very interesting. ESPN bet. I lost us our bet over the weekend. I apologize. I said Jokic on the over. I also made a bet this morning, though. Interim coach / manager bump.
Oh, the Rockies?
2 in a row for the Rockies.